All right, what is going on, fam? Welcome back to another video. Today I kind of want to follow up on the last video I made, talked about building a physique and fitness and things of that nature, and today I just want to talk about testosterone because I briefly touched on that in the last video. And yeah, I don't think people realize how important your hormones are. Testosterone is. This is going to be geared mainly towards men. Testosterone is applicable and in the female body as well, but I'm not really going to be talking about that. So yeah, let's get right into it. I have some notes on my phone going to be using to help guide the video, so I'm not just yapping all over the place. But let's begin with a little bit about testosterone and its structure, what it's for, what its role is, and things like that. So sure, as many of you know, testosterone is used for the production of sexual reproductive tissues. The testes, you got the prostate, things of that nature. But then testosterone is also very useful and required in building muscle mass and bone density and tissue and red blood cells and things of that nature. And so this is why a lot of bodybuilders will supplement testosterone, they'll inject testosterone, do all that. And it's because high testosterone means usually high muscle mass and high ability to put on muscle. Not always. What I will say is that if you're thinking about this in a bodybuilding and fitness context, then if you're a healthy man, you have everything going right, you really don't need to supplement testosterone. You don't need to be on TRT. You don't need to be on steroids. You should be good. And yeah, so testosterone is also used for motivation. People with pretty high testosterone are usually more assertive and confident and things like that. So this is why people will tell you when they're on steroids, they feel totally different. And yeah, it's just a completely different feeling. There's also the libido aspect, sex drive, things of that, erectile function. These are all components of testosterone. This is why it's very important. This is why as a man, you have to constantly be worrying about your testosterone. And you don't really want to subject yourself to anything that can potentially lower that. There's two main types of testosterone. There's free testosterone and total testosterone. Now, what I want everyone to do is the next time you see your doctor, ask for a blood test. And when you get a blood test, ask for a hormone panel, complete hormone panel. That's going to tell you your total test, your free test. It's going to tell you everything that you need to know about what you can't really see on the outside, right? Free and total test are very different. Your total testosterone can be very high, but some people can have symptoms of low test because their free test is low. And the difference between free and total test, I touched on this before, is that free testosterone is it's 1 to 2% of your total test, and it's the testosterone that's not bound to anything, not bound to SHBG, and it's able to do things throughout your body. It's able to be active, right? So a lot of your total test is going to be bound to sex hormone binding globulin protein, and so it's not going to be able to do things. It's not going to be active, right? So you really want to be worrying about both. And the way to increase your free test is to increase your total test and to make sure your total test is dialed in. And so, yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. There's a bunch of factors that go into keeping your, testosterone high. Let's talk about what it looks like when it's low. You might have low energy. That's pretty major sign of low test is having low energy. Low libido, your sexual energy is not there. You are not, you don't have that drive. Muscle mass is not quite there. Also a sign of high fat, if you have a high fat content. Things like that. If you're just low energy, moody. Also lack of hair is another sign. This is why certain communities are very hairy. I'm going to say this because I'm part of that. As an Iranian man, I'm very hairy, and that's because Middle Easterns are usually have naturally high testosterone. I'm not going to be using this as a way to gas myself up. It's just the facts. I don't know if it's due to diet or whatever the case is. Middle Easterns usually have relatively high testosterone, whether you're Egyptian, Arab, Lebanese, whatever the case may be. Us fellow Iranians, very hairy. It's a sign of our high testosterone. And also, I've read some studies that our diets have something to do with this. This is also why a lot of us have problems with genetic high cholesterol and like predispositions to high cholesterol. I am victim to this because cholesterol is a precursor to testosterone. So you got to be careful making sure your cholesterol is dialed, because us high testosterone people are going to be on the higher side on cholesterol. So that is what I want to say in terms of low testosterone. Now, things that can cause it, or if you look at like symptoms of low testosterone, you can kind of figure out what causes low testosterone. If someone that has a very high fat content, fat has the enzyme aromatase in it, and so aromatase converts testosterone to estrogen, and so a lot of the times people with a higher body fat content are going to be on the lower side of testosterone. So keep that in mind. Try to stay lean. This is also why a lot of fellow lean genetic people also have high testosterone. Chronic stress is going to be lowering your testosterone. If you're super stressed out, your body has less nutrients, your body has less resources to allocate to the functions that are involved with high testosterone, building muscle, things like that. If you're someone that doesn't have good, sleep habits, if you're someone that doesn't sleep that much, testosterone, your hormones are optimized and created and set up in your sleep, right? And so this is why if you just have poor sleep quality, whatever the case may be, this is just another symptom of, or another way that testosterone is lowered. Also, GH, growth hormone, is also released in your sleep. So if someone doesn't have good sleep quality, likely that they're not going to be growing as much as well. So this is not to mention any other like medical conditions. Medical conditions obviously have their own factor in playing into this. So I'm assuming you're a healthy, normal guy, not dealing with any major health concerns like diabetes or anything like that. So now, talked about all the bad stuff. Let's talk about how to optimize your testosterone and increase it. Make sure you're all dialed in. First and foremost, I want to talk about exercise. When you're lifting heavy forces your body to produce test. So compound lift, especially squats, compound lifts will push your body to the max to release testosterone. And so this is why a lot of the time, I know I've seen this on TikTok or whatever, people cannot control their sexual urges after leg days. So it's because your body is forcing to increase testosterone. So focus on compound lifts and lifting heavy. In the last video I said you don't really need to lift heavy, but just lift. That's all I'm going to say. Put in your reps. Also make sure your diet is dialed in. You got to make sure you're eating enough, making sure you're having enough protein so that your body can produce testosterone, as well as healthy fats, things like avocados, healthy oils, nuts, things like that are going to be supplying your body with the resources to produce testosterone. And this is really important. Diet is extremely important. It's why a lot of times people that are on cuts will see a dip in their test, because your body doesn't have the resources to produce the test. So make sure you're eating right. Of course, make sure you're sleeping 7 to 9 hours, whatever you need. If you're someone that needs more sleep, then sleep more. Whatever you need, just make sure your body is getting it. Definitely don't limit yourself in terms of sleep. If you have to get up for work at 5 a.m., then don't be going to bed. Don't step foot into bed at 12 a.m. Obviously, make sure you're getting what you need, which is also a bit counterintuitive because I know people that are on tests that like supplement it with TRT or whatever the case is, they're on steroids, usually feel like they need less sleep. And we'll talk about that in a whole other video. But I think the next biggest thing I want to talk about is stress. If you are chronically stressed, if you're super like stressed out about everything and you're just in a down mood, cortisol, I think cholesterol is also a precursor to cortisol. Don't fact check me on that. So if you have a lot of cortisol, you're constantly stressed, test is going to be lower as well. So do your best to manage stress. You know, like I've said before, don't go to substances because substances really have their own way of reducing your test. But things like ashwagandha, things like that will naturally lower your cortisol, those are good. Just make sure you're not super stressed. Do your stress management things, therapy, whatever the case may be, that will help you. Be mindful of that. This leads us to the topic of TRT. There's a bunch of guys that are on there. I'm going to name drop. Alex Eubank is on TRT. He admitted it. He built his whole career on being a natural lifter and not putting in, not using any supplements or roids or PEDs or anything. If you have some like genetic, I'm not going to say genetic. If you have some disease or you have some ailments, physical ailments or something that's stopping you from producing testosterone, then I get it. If you are a young man in your 20s or even like 17, 18, 19, whatever the case may be, there's absolutely zero reason anyone of that age that's healthy, that has nothing medical going for them, should be on TRT. So another thing is if you're injecting it, if you're forcing it into your body, then at some point when you're not forcing it into your body's going to be used to it being supplemented from the outside. So you don't want to get used to, be used to having it like testosterone from the outside, because then it's going to stop producing testosterone on its own. You never want to do that. You never want to put yourself in a situation to do that. And yeah, the point the reason I'm so passionate about this is because, as young men, the young men that we are right now, our goal is to keep our bodies healthy and strong and really build a foundation for when we're older, for when things have way higher chances of going wrong. So I know everyone knows that when you're older, testosterone takes a dip. If you're putting in the work now and you're active as well in the future, then you'll have a good foundation to go off of in your older age to keep you healthy. So just be mindful, keep lifting heavy, keep eating right, sleeping right. Stress and mental is a huge factor that gets overlooked a lot. If you guys want any of the studies that I have been looking at, I can just drop a comment, and happy to respond with the citations for the studies. And yeah, another thing is there's a couple supplements you could take. You could take ashwagandha. Vitamin D is a huge thing. This is why people say get sun exposure, stuff like that. You want to have sun exposure and enough vitamin D. I supplement vitamin D personally because I know for a fact I'm inside all day. I don't really get sun exposure, so I take a supplement. Highly recommend taking a supplement and also getting your vitamin D checked when you get a blood test, because this will tell a lot. Vitamin D is going to help your body produce test, and yeah, it's going to help with the bone density and things like that, all these important stuff that go into regulating test. So to conclude, if you're a healthy man, you shouldn't be taking TRT unless you absolutely have to. I know someone that I don't know what reason, but he had to have one of his testicles removed. So obviously you're not going to be producing as much testosterone. In such, random outlier cases, you got to do what you got to do. Get on TRT if you need it. If you find yourself, falling to such, I'm not a medical professional, I'm not going to say I am, so this is not medical advice, but if there are different things you're dealing with, diabetes, whatever the case may be, and if you have to take TRT, then I highly recommend going to see an endocrinologist and seeing if you can get it prescribed and doing it with a medical professional. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, hope you learned something, and I will catch you guys in another video. Peace out.